when you think of mindfulness, it's, as I mentioned, the journey that I've been on. It is moving from literally the senses, the five senses that we have, down to our soul. But to get there, we have to pause. At some point, I noticed uh, a, um, a tattoo on his leg that said, "Trust no one."
When he started to go on tour around the world, he would go back to Jamaica and people would line up around the block of his house and he would pass them thousands of dollars, just handing it out because he was like,
Lifting you up in a loving way, not to beat you up and say, "Girl, that's not what you said," but standing for you. Your last child, the ugly cry. And then I drew a line in the sand and I said, "You need to toughen up." Now, that also meant, though, that that's how I showed up, including for a man who wants to protect and provide for me and to take care of me. So, what it did for me, though, is that that dark period got me going deeper into who I really am. And that then brought me to a place where I realized that.
hey y'all, welcome back to Transformation to Expansion. I'm your host, LaJoy Bradley, and today we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Nadine Sinclair. She is also known as Coach Nads. She's an international mindfulness transformation coach, trainer, storyteller, and motivational speaker. Her clients say Nads makes you feel seen, heard, and cared for while guiding you to self-mastery and wealth. Nads grew up in Jamaica and in Florida and now lives in the
Salubrious.
salubrious. That's a new word for me? Okay, salubrious. I love that. Parish of Manchester, Jamaica. Please welcome to the show, Nadine. Welcome to Transformation to Expansion, Nadine. How are you feeling today?
I am fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And when I tell you I'm giving thanks because I would have mentioned to you, LaJoy, that we are recently coming out of a hurricane. And so I'm grateful. And so, by the way, salubrious is really just like healthy. It's kind of like one of those words meaning like healthy and giving and just it's a beautiful parish in Jamaica. So we sit 2,000 feet above sea level, right? So it's a very rich parish, rich with like beautiful hills. So it's not on the coast. Most people are familiar with Negril or Montego Bay or Ocho Rios, things like that. But we are in the middle of the island, literally like center, 2,000 feet above sea level on a plateau. So on a flat area on the island of Jamaica. Yeah. So salubrious is just, just one of those words that just make me feel good.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Hey, it's a new word for me. I love it. I love it. I love it. So what is your transformation story into the work that you do now? You say you're a motivational speaker. I mean, you are a motivational speaker and a coach. How did you get into the work that you're doing right now?
All right. So, interestingly, my background is human resources. I've sort of always been coaching and doing this kind of work for many, many years. So, I remember even as a little girl at 14, my dad's sister, we were living in the States at the time, and my dad's sister came from Jamaica to the States. I'm 14. And she comes up and she's, of course, looking for a job and all of the things. I'm pulling out the newspaper and saying, "Okay, what are your skill sets?" 14. And I'm like, "Okay, let's do some work here and, try and help her to find a job." And so, even as a little girl, I was sort of guided in this direction, not knowing that what would eventually happen. I went and did an associate's degree in accounting, did very well, very good grades, but I realized early on that that was not feeding my soul. I'm going to say I landed in human resources because I feel that way. Like I literally just landed in that area. And when I got into that area, I found that I was in human resources and payroll, by the way. So I still had a bit of the accounting. taking place. People would come to me. Imagine I'm like 20, 21 years old. People would come to me and asking me for my advice. Something we say in Jamaica, they would ask me literally everything from a pin to an anchor. So it was literally anything on the spectrum. And at 20, 21, I was like, I'm just talking. I just felt like I was just pouring out my heart, asking questions to the next person. And they would leave my office saying things like, thank you so much. You did so much for me.
Mhm.
Thank you. Almost like, you solved a puzzle. You just gave me the last puzzle piece that I needed. I'm over here going, what did I do? I was just talking, just being my natural self. So I've done the associate's degree, and then now I decide to go on to do my bachelor's, and I focus on human resources, which would have included things like some psychology and counseling and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. So I then get into a human resources position as assistant director at a physical rehab hospital of all places. Anyway, because I was so like not into that kind of thing. However, it was such a wonderful experience for me and it set a platform for me to move forward. So I've sort of always been doing this coaching work.
Mhm.
Then come forward now about 15 years ago, I started really tapping more into self work, diving
Mhm.
within. And it came at a time when, and I've been doing a work with a collaborating with my business partner, Simply Bold Conversations, and we've been talking about menopause. Now, it happened when I was in my late 30s. So the last thought in my head was menopause. I hadn't even reached 40
Mhm.
yet, but then I'm approaching 40 and I'm still feeling unlike myself. It just didn't feel right. And so my transformation, I'm going to say, came through a very dark period in my life where I felt very low, low energy, just not myself, and I needed healing. I didn't know where to go. And LaJoy, and that's why I'm grateful for these kinds of communities because I didn't know where to go.
Mhm.
I was lost. I went to my doctor who prescribed some antidepressants. And literally that first week, I'm like, I can't lift my head off of the pillow. She said, Nadine, I've given you a children's dose. I'm like, well, that's not for me. That's not working. So, I'm going to call it the traditional things like going to my doctor, church, all kinds of things. But something within me knew that there was this gap, this hole. And I did a lot of soul searching in that
Mhm.
season. And in that season, there were also things happening like my father had a heart attack. So there were external things going on around me as well. And I just felt like I was going deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole. You know, Maybe you'd call it depression. I wasn't diagnosed with depression, but that's how it felt. And one of the
Mhm.
biggest things that I feel shifted for me was attaching myself to a loving community. And it was a community of women that were very supportive, very loving, even when you may have been doing things that may not have been even good for myself, they would correct, but in a loving way. I hadn't had that kind of community before. And that was the biggest shift for me. But internally is where it would have come from because I knew something wasn't right. It wasn't right. At the time, I was working at a company that I wasn't unhappy. I would literally cry on my way to work. And then there was just
Mhm.
like this, almost like this huge aha moment of, like I said, connecting with this community, which then got me to even dig deeper within what is going on
Mhm.
inside of me. And as I was asking myself the question, and this is another thing. Once you put a question out there, an answer is going to come to you. The solution is going to come to you. We're human, so we're busy looking. Oh, does LaJoy have the answer? Does Mary have the answer?
Mm-hmm.
LaJoy may ask the questions that guide you, that guide me in a particular way, but I'm the one really with the answer. And so that group got me to look within deeper, ask myself more questions. And I'm going to say more deliberate and intentional questions. So I shifted even the questions that I was asking myself. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, not just things like, what's wrong with you? And now Oprah has a book on it with Dr. Bruce Perry. What happened to you? And as I was asking myself those questions, I recognized that there was a point in my life, early in my life, where I felt abandoned. And in
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of abandonment, I went into a soldier. And so that was my programming that, and I'm talking about before I was even 10, 8, 9 years old. So I went into this sort of soldier way of operating. And similar to when you
Mm-hmm.
open up your search engines and maybe you have a Google search engine, it's the default setting. My default setting was soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And I was unaware of that. Even though I said things like, we're going to soldier this through, I use those words. I've never even been in the military. But as a little girl, my go to was soldier. And it seemed as if I was good and I was fine. And so here, when menopause hits, I go right back into soldier. And oh, girl, you've got this. Da, 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 da. You can do this on your own. We're not meant to do life on our own. We're not. We're meant to be a part of a community. Hence, COVID was so challenging for many of us because we were locked
Mm-hmm.
away by ourselves. So, my transformation has been a journey, and I like to say that I'm transforming, not transformed, because
Mm-hmm.
every day my eye opens, I get a different opportunity to shift, to move the needle, to elevate, to go higher, to ascend from where I was yesterday. I'm not competing with LaJoy. LaJoy is at a different journey in her life, a different juncture.
Oh, wait, Nadine. Sorry, it's LaJoie.
LaJoie, sorry, LaJoie, LaJoie. You're on a different trajectory in your life. We may
Mm-hmm.
be going to the same destination, even because to leave my home and go to Montego Bay, there are many different routes to take. And you may
Mm-hmm.
take one that's more scenic, that's more on the coast, and I may decide I want to go through the hills and valleys. We're both going to get to the same destination. Both are going to get there. And so my
Mm-hmm.
transformation is still taking place. But the critical point, I would say, was about 15 to 20 years ago when I realized that something's not right. Something's going on internally, and I needed support. I needed community. And that helped me to really shift the trajectory of where I'm going, which then also got me deeper into the coaching work. So it's not that I've dropped the human resources, for example, or anything else that I do in my life, because I was even saying to LaJoie that I also have natural hair and skin products.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't done them since COVID, but that was a part of my journey. And my product line is Gaia, Mother Earth. But I've now even ventured into Gaia luxury retreats. And we just came back from Greece recently. So, what it did for me, though, is that dark period got me going deeper into who I really am. And that then brought me to a place where I realized that the coaching was actually my natural gift. Before that, LaJoy, I was literally almost fighting it. When people would come to, I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't want to do that because I felt like I was also carrying people on my back. But that's not my job. My job is not to do that. My job is to ask the questions for you to almost unearth it for yourself. And I could
Mm-hmm.
talk and talk and talk about this, LaJoy. So, because it's something I love and I'm very passionate about. So I would say that it's not a one and done because I did go to Athens. I did go to the Acropolis. I'm here to tell you that's a one and done. It was I was exhausted, one and done. But you see the
Mm-hmm.
transformational process. I think that happens until the day my eyes close. But there was
I love that.
a season in my life
Mm-hmm.
that I would say that really I was focused on that brought it more to light. And that was 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because it's we tend to live so passively, I feel like. So for example, what I mean by that is like I think what a year ago, not even a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, I was part of this like workshop, and when I saw, I didn't know how long it was gonna be, but then I checked the email and it was like it's gonna be a 10-hour workshop. So I'm expecting, there's gonna be a couple of people, different people talking, and I enter the workshop, and for 10 hours, it's one person talking. 10 hours. This person was able to talk for 10. This was a 10-hour lecture. It was a lot. Obviously, I wasn't just sitting there. I was cooking, listening, y'all was doing different things, but I was just so amazed that this person could talk for 10 hours. And so, it was so funny because, like, passively, I was like, you know what, one day hopefully I'll have the ability to talk for 10 hours. And so, literally, like a month later, I started doing more live stream videos and lectures on different topics. I think around this time I was doing soulmates because I know people really want to know their soulmate, but they don't even know their own soul, right? So I talked about how you got to know yourself first. Okay, this is how it works. Um, but anyway, my point is, I think a month ago I was interviewed on this specific topic for the first time, and I was able to talk for like 1 or 2 hours, and I was amazed because I was like, wait, like I didn't even know I could do this, and it was so funny because during the podcast that I was on, I was like, oh wait, I want to talk even more about this, but it was amazing and beautiful because in that moment, when I reflected, I was like, oh, that's what all of those live streams I was doing for months were for. It was for this moment. And so it's like, we go through life, we don't see how it's connected, but it's always connected.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you said that because what you were experiencing was leading you up to that point. And you don't know
Mm-hmm.
how the things are going to connect. So it wasn't until, I was way into my human resources arena. I'm going to say like at least 10 years into it. When I looked back and I thought about my 14-year-old self helping my aunt to look for a job, just one aspect of the human resources field, because that's quite a massive field. But everything literally in life is in contribution to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's so many stories I could tell. And as you say, what you just said a little while ago, that you didn't even recognize you could talk for that long, is because it's something you're
Mm-hmm.
passionate about, something that you love.
Mm-hmm.
I find that when my husband and I went on vacation.
Get started on your wellness journey today. Whether you are starting your wellness journey in the middle of it or finishing it, this library will help you so much to jumpstart your wellness. And really, it has so much more than that. It has full guides on how to quantum leap, full guides on how to manifest, and even my personal favorite, coloring books. Yes, and I'm talking unique coloring books. Y'all already know who you're dealing with, okay? We have baobab coloring books, cactus plant coloring books, and so much more. And it's completely free. So please make sure to check it out, especially if you're on your wellness journey, or if you know a friend who is on the wellness journey and wants some free resources, please let them know about the wellness library, okay? The link is in the show notes below. I love y'all so much. Let's get back to the show.
We were in a restaurant in Orlando, and this young lady, the waitress, came over and she was chatting, da 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 da. And my husband had to turn to me after she walked away and was like, can you turn off? Because I was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I was kidding. I
Mm-hmm.
went right into my coaching because it's just like a natural rhythm, the natural flow of life. I have stopped working for years now because I genuinely believe that I have been living my passion such that I no longer work. Now I have multiple things that I do, I get paid for, but I no longer work in the same sense that I felt years ago because I'm passionate about it. And it can give you, just as you said a little while ago, you can talk for hours
Mm-hmm.
because you're so passionate about it. And all of the different pieces gave you insights and knowledge and what have you to get you to where you are today. And
Mm-hmm.
for each of
Exactly.
us.
Yeah.
So even those dark moments, those moments that feel like, God, help me out of this one. I can't see the light. It's in contribution. So when I think
Of
back to my
course.
8-year-old soldier self, which was like a crop, literally like I drew a line in the sand. I spent a day and a half practically crying my eyes out because my parents had left us with some family members because they wanted to come back to Jamaica to live. I thought my world had come to an end, you know? Like, how could you leave your one and only daughter, your last child, the ugly cry? And then I drew a line in the sand and I said, you need to toughen up. Now, that also
Mm.
meant, though, that that's how I showed up, including for a man who wants to protect and provide for me and to take care of me. Imagine that's how I also show up with my husband. God bless
Mm-hmm.
him. He had, such love for me that he loved me through that. And I could draw now more into, and again, when I became aware, though, that I could draw more from my feminine energy and I didn't have to sort this thing through because I don't have to do it alone.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Yeah, yeah. It's that transformation of realizing kind of all parts of you instead of just one part of you,
Correct.
right? Um, that's beautiful. So for people who are on the entrepreneur journey, or not even on the, we're not even saying entrepreneur for this conversation, right? Who want to do more of like what you do, live a life how you live, right? You're not working anymore. You're just doing what you're passionate about. You're serving. You're living in service, right? What's the biggest advice you would give somebody, to someone who wants to start living in service?
So, one, I would say that you want clarity. What really brings you joy to your soul? So many times, unfortunately, even if we've gone to school, maybe somebody even said, I know that girl would make a good lawyer, or I know she would make a good X, whatever X is. And then you take it on, somebody else's dream, maybe it could be your parents, part of your community, and they put that on you. And then you went ahead and you started to go to school. You became a doctor, you became a musician, whatever it may be, because somebody else had that dream for you. But when you search your soul, it's really not yours. So I encourage people to do some more soul searching, asking yourself the questions. Because once you put a question out there, the answer will come to you. It may not come in the
Mm-hmm.
very moment, but it will come to you. And I also encourage you that once you put it out there, let it go. Don't fight to try and find the answer. Just allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, you're just allowing it to float and land in your lap. Now, when I even shared the story about the soldier, I did not remember that piece of my life. I did not even connect the dots until about 15 years ago. I'm in a circle, in a workshop, and a lady sharing her story. But as she's sharing her story, I am feeling something inside of me. And I got one of those light bulb aha moments. That's why I show up the way I do. And that's when those thoughts came
Mm-hmm.
to me. And I'm like, that's it. And it was literally like, boom, a light bulb went on as to how I show up in the world and what was occurring for me. So I like to call them the ABCs. You become aware. So when you ask me about what I would advise other people, you become aware.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the awareness comes from the looking within, looking into the internal landscape. Most of our lives we spend looking at outside. So I'm encouraging you to pause and spend some time looking within. Then you become aware of who am I being. So the A is the awareness. I don't know why that has been happening lately with those balloons and things.
It's all good. It's all good. We're
Yeah,
paying attention. That's
yeah, pay
why.
attention. And that's, you have to become aware. So you have to pay attention. Become aware. Who am I being? Remember, your beingness is your soul, your attitude, your behavior. And then number three, ABC, is I get to choose. How do I show
Mhm,
up? And you see, in that
mhm,
choosing, now there are times when I'm aware, I know who I'm being, and I'm still choosing to show up with attitude. I'm still choosing to show up soldier. I'm still choosing to show up in a way that doesn't really serve me, because I believe deep down, love conquers all. Love
of course.
conquers all. Because when I see myself as love, I treat myself with more loving thoughts, behavior, everything, all the stuff. And I can then see others, the jaw, other people in the same loving
Mhm,
way through those eyes.
mhm,
And so those three to me is like top notch. Now, you may or may not be able to do it on your own because maybe you could be feeling overwhelmed and you may
mhm,
need somebody to support you, to guide you on that process. I encourage individuals to seek some support. It can be through a counselor. If you feel that that's what you need in that moment, it may be from a coach, but it's depending on what you may need in that moment. Because there are times when we think, oh, I can do this alone. I know how to do that. No matter how close your eyes are on your face, they cannot see one another. You cannot see
mhm,
yourself without the aid of a mirror. You need something else, someone else to really see who you are. So I encourage people to
mhm,
do that. As you're doing that soul searching, to not force it. Don't feel rushed that you're on some time limit that I need to do it by the time I reach 30, by the time I reach 25, by the time I reach 50. My God, I thought I'd figure this out by the time I'm 60. Whatever the number may be, don't give yourself a time limit, because guess what? Prior to that, and I think you said it earlier, LaJoie, right? Right, yeah.
mhm, mhm,
That you can be living passively. All it means is that you were just unaware. I was unaware that I was showing up as a soldier. I
mhm,
was in my 40s. And here
mhm,
I'm somebody who's been doing this kind of work. I was just unaware. Who was I being in that moment? Who I could be with the skills, knowledge, experiences that I had in that moment. Because I suspect tomorrow I'm going to be a different human being. Because I will. I'll show up differently
mhm,
and I'll
mhm,
make different choices. When I tell you about those ABCs as well, I want you to think about your choices. Now, the choices, if you think about back to school, you would have gone to a multiple choice exam test and you had maybe 4 or 5 choices. And in the same way, that's the same thing you're doing in your life. When I think about this morning's podcast and what we're doing today, right? Today's podcast, there were some choices. I could have gone on or not. I could have told LaJoy,
mhm,
listen, not doing this today. I could have said, yes, I'm excited to do this. There are some choices, some options. Sometimes there are multiple things that I would want to do. Now, tomorrow, I may not be feeling my NAD self. NADS may be feeling way off. And I say, LaJoy, no
mhm,
matter how you come to me today, it's a no. Because then the multiple choice just looks different. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me or I'm bad, I'm a bad person. In that moment, I'm making the choices based on what I see in front of me, what my soul is saying. Because the choices that I made at 10, 15, 25, 35, 45, they're different. I'm 57 years old. And so I'm going
Mhm.
to make different choices based on all of the things that are in front of me. And so I encourage people, get a community, get support. It doesn't have, it's not that I'm saying it has to be Coach Nads, it has to be LaJoy. I'm saying
Mhm.
there are options. Let's get support because we do not have to do this journey alone. We're meant to be part of
Mhm.
community. That is very clear in my life. Very, very clear. And I became aware of that because there was a point in time where I did feel like, oh, I got this. I got this on my own. I can do it. I'm alone in this thing. And that did not serve me. I know that was a very long winded answer to your question, but I hope it served others.
No, yeah, no, I love it. I love it because that's something that I realized. I think a couple years ago that was really important to me personally. So I'm an introvert, but I definitely come off as an extrovert to a lot of people. So, but anyway, but yeah, like it's like the moment I found like my little like conscious community. Like I was like, these are the people I'm meant to be with. They are in alignment with me. I resonate with what they're saying. I love everything they're saying. This is like, this is it. This is the part. This is like the people. Yeah, yeah.
This is your tribe. This is your
Right,
tribe. And
exactly.
we need to
Yeah.
find our tribe.
Yeah, and we met on Tasha's like wealth sisterhood, and that was one of the things I love about the sisterhood too, because I was so tired of being around people, and people who they didn't know either, right? But these are like the friends who just didn't know the power of being positive, of focusing on what it is I desired instead of just focusing on complaining all the time, right? And it was really hard because I was coming from this space where, not coming from the space, but I was around
Mm,
these people or interacting with these friends who I love them so much, but they didn't understand what I was doing or how I was making the moves to shift my reality. And so what I loved about Tasha's group was that I was like, oh my God, these are the women I'm supposed to be around. This is the community I'm supposed to be around. They get it. They know what they're doing. They understand that this is, if you want to start to kind of level up your life, doesn't matter how you want to level it up, whether it's like money, relationships, and that's relationship with yourself too, right? Religion, any of it, right? You need to start focusing on what you want to
correct.
desire. And I just love that that community is aware of that and it celebrates that too, right? Um,
This farm isn't just any farm. It grows for Juice Plus. Juice Plus is farm to capsule nutrition made from 30 different non GMO fruits, vegetables, and berries. Harvested at peak goodness to make nutrient rich plant powders in convenient capsules. Clinically proven for over 20 years to support your wellness. And makes it easy to help bridge the gap between what you should eat and do eat. Fruits and vegetables are always on the table with Juice Plus. Juice Plus. Goodness is our natural state.
Celebrates. Yeah. So many times in my life, I've heard women say things like, "Oh, the women in my life, oh, they're terrible. They tear you down." I'm like, that has not been my experience. When I tell you that has not been my experience, it has not been my experience. I have had very supportive people in my life from my family. There was like a little cocoon, and you felt protected,
mhm,
you felt loved. I didn't have that there. And I think you get what you give off. I'm very clear on that. I've had people tell me different experiences that they've had with working with different entities, even like government agencies and stuff like that. And I'm like, really? That
mhm,
has not been my experience. I've had some very good experiences. And I think it's what I give off because I'm not stepping into the space with, let me see what she's coming with. Let me da 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 da. I'm coming with love and I get love back. I won't even say that I'm expecting it. I just get love back. Period. And you mentioned the sisterhood, so it's called the Wealthy Sisterhood, and that group has been again another amazing group of women who love and support you. And even when there is some like they see you going down a direction that they know it's
mhm.
not serving you, you know yourself isn't serving you. They're there to lift you up, lifting you up in a loving way. not to beat you up and say, girl, that's not what you said, but standing for you. And I also like to say, I'm standing for you and your greatness, such that
Mm-hmm.
my life depends on it, because it does. And if there was no other point in our lives, if we didn't recognize that we're our brother's keeper and that what happens on the other end of the world impacts me, I knew that during COVID. Because when that
Mm-hmm.
first started, oh, it was over there, way over there, not coming close to me on this little island of Jamaica. And then, literally within days, there was a case here.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, whoa.
Right.
But what I took from it more than anything was not the, let me call it the casualties and the separation and the da da da. I didn't take all the negative energy that came from it. I actually found that my business thrived during that season
Mm-hmm.
because I said, okay, guess what? We can't have physical touch, but here's another opportunity to create platforms that we can still communicate. We can still be together. I saw it as an opportunity to do some self reflection because there wasn't a lot of distraction of travel. I used to travel a lot before
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And so that meant that, I'm traveling to a destination to get to some workshop. That all was now eliminated because I now have, boom, I just need to go from my
Mm-hmm.
bathroom, my bedroom to the office, and I'm here. So I thought it brought a lot of opportunity, but it also got me so connected to we really are just one. What
Mm-hmm.
impacts you, wherever you are, impacts me. And that to me was one of the biggest lessons and the takeaways that I got from COVID, and that I could pivot and see what is occurring from my physical eyes, senses. I can shift what was occurring physically to, what can I learn from this experience? Versus, let's go down a journey, as you mentioned earlier, with friends that may be taking you in a direction that's not for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah, it's so interesting. You mentioned oneness, and this is like that's one of the biggest like shifts that I've come across like this year. So it's my 30th year, um, but that's one of the biggest like mindset shifts that I've come across, which is crazy because I kind of know the direction um, of my life and all that. We ain't going into that, but my point is oneness. That's something that I started to practice actively because I feel like when you're younger in your 20s, you're very much caught up in like, oh, that's not me. I'm not like that. I don't like people who are like this. I don't like people who are like that. But when you start to tap into this concept of oneness, you kind of have to start to reprogram yourself to think like, this wasn't me in the past, right? But this person is
Yes.
expressing a part of myself or God, right? But you need to it's this you got to shift your thinking. It's a huge shift. So this is something I've been practicing. This past week I met two women who before I think last year I would have been like we would not have been friends. But I shifted my mindset. I was like, no, like they're expressing a part of me that maybe there's a part of my soul that wants to be in alignment like that, and who wants to express that part of myself that I haven't allowed myself to express before. Um,
I love that. I love that because you know what has
mhm,
happened for me on this journey, as you said, and it's a journey. Years ago, I may meet you and I immediately go, I don't know if I love those earrings. And I get so caught up on the
mhm,
earrings. I like them.
mhm.
But you do.
So I know me too. Anyway, go
You're like, oh, do I have on any? I get so caught up
ahead.
on, oh, I don't know if I like the head wrap. I don't know if I like the this, the that. And oh, that blouse, why did she wear that? And then it just literally it sends your body and your mind in a particular direction. But what I've
Right.
come to, and like I said, it's not an overnight thing, it's a practice I became aware. And then what was showing up for me was, oh wait, there may be something in you, because remember, it's life is a reflection of what's going on internally. So you may be doing something that has highlighted something that's going on inside of me that I don't like, but it's showing up over there, and I'm going to say sometimes amplified. So if someone's behavior, for example, they're acting out, they are looking anxious, but you don't like anxiety and all of that. Instead of beating it up and you and I going off in a corner going, look at her over there acting all anxious and why is she going on like that? What it has allowed me to do this journey is to literally like almost put a spotlight on it. Okay, Nads, where in my life am I showing up anxious that I need to shift? Because what's going on over there that I'm seeing is it's really ultimately showing up what's going on internally that I have been probably even disturbed by, haven't had the skills, the tools to pull, but because it's showing up over there, it's lifting something out of me. And it's, to me, instead of going down the road of just bashing it and saying, oh, that's not right, da 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 da, I like to turn it towards myself instead of beating you up. Turn it towards me and go, where in my life is anxiety showing up? Where in my life is something that I don't like showing up over there that it's really internally here? So, part of the biggest aha moment for me, as I mentioned about 15 years ago or so, was making those shifts to turn within. You know, when I talk about when you're pointing the finger at somebody, there's three more pointing back at you. And so I find that I get a lot more reflective. And I'll give you an example. As I mentioned, I went to Greece, and maybe the second, not the first day that we arrived, but the next day, we were out, we were doing some tours, we were having a great time. And when we got back to where we were staying, I then started posting some stuff online. Now, I never asked the ladies that were with me. I just started posting. But what do you think happened? One of their friends saw it and messaged them and goes, hey, girl, I see you having a good time. And one of them, because we were in one house, but three separate rooms, one of them yelled out and goes, I don't want to be on social media. And then, that kind of thing occurred. But guess what happened though, LaJoy? I did, because my first thought, so my first go-to was, why is she acting like that? Why is she going on like this? That kind of way. And then I paused. That's why I'm telling you that pause is also another lovely tool that I use.
Yeah.
And I looked within, because it's the pause that gets me to move it from my head to my heart. And I went, Nadine, Nads, you didn't even ask them if they wanted to be out there. Because in the moment I was being bold and excited and I was just posting. And then it just hit me. I didn't even ask the question. And so I pulled down the pictures that included them, still left the post out there, but just had like the scenery and my picture. And I apologized to them. And that's another thing that has happened in this journey, is that I've gotten to a place where I'm not just hiding away, pulling down the post and not saying anything. I come back and I go, LaJoy, honestly, LaJoy, I apologize. LaJoy, I apologize because I really should have asked you. I shouldn't have put it out there without asking you the question. And I'm not being like, I'm not too big to say I'm sorry or to apologize. But this sort of self-reflection, this internal work, this looking within, when I tell you it is moment by moment, it is moment by moment. Because there are those days when I tell you I rail up like a cobra, ready to attack, and mid-air, like I got to really love basketball from high school onward. Basketball was not a
Mm-hmm.
typical sport in Jamaica. But by the time I went into high school, I was in Florida and into college. Loved basketball. But you know, like when you're going up for like a slam dunk, one of those, or an air ball, I would be like a cobra,
Mm-hmm.
ready to attack. And
Mm-hmm.
what I've become so aware of is to be able to pause. That when I see myself in that space, I know that what's going to come out on the end is not who I say I am and not the truth of me. That's a knee jerk response, a knee jerk reaction, a knee jerk attack to the old programming of NADS, the soldier
Mm-hmm.
NADS, that does not need to fight for herself because everything is there available to me. And so I get to catch myself mid-air, mid-dunk, cobra, and say, oh, back up, girl. Pause here. That doesn't serve you. Because I did go initially, because I said my brain went to, why you acting like that? It's just a pose. But I never thought, hold on. Maybe she didn't even want the people to know that she's in Greece. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
apologize. I said to myself, hold on, girl, you need to go and apologize. And I did. And so when I tell you that awareness, those ABCs, there were tools, they're like literally right here in my pocket. I don't go anywhere without them. They're right here next to me because I know that I get excited about stuff. I love life. I get excited about life. And I will just get into stuff. The name of my business, Go Bold. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
but it may not be what the next person wants in that moment. And what's interesting is that after we were there for about, because I spent 2 weeks in different islands, but in Greece, after about maybe 3, 4 days, the person that was the most vocal about not wanting to be out there said to me, it's okay, you can post, you can now
Mm-hmm.
post, and maybe she had some self-reflection as well about it. But it's just, becoming aware of other people, being emotionally intelligent, um, and just knowing that whatever's occurring over here with me, there's other stuff happening out there. And that
Mm-hmm.
oneness is real. It's real. You mentioned that this podcast is, primarily women, and that's what you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
focus on and women of color. While you were talking about the oneness, this story came to mind about Mary McLeod Bethune, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who has now passed on. But she
Mm-hmm.
started Bethune Cookman College back in I think it was the 60s, if memory serves me correct. Now, Bethune Cookman College, which is now a university, black, one of those historically black colleges and universities. Mary McLeod Bethune, though, I read her story. She was the first child born out of slavery for her parents. So, say her parents had, and I don't remember the exact number, but say her parents had 10 children. So, she's the first child and she's born somewhere in the middle. Some missionaries came to their home that wanted to teach people how to read and write and teach them about the Bible and all of that stuff. And her dad, I think she said she could have been about 8 or 9 years old. And her dad said to them, take Mary. She's different. And she went to these missionaries. And another wonderful book that I keep very close to me as well is my
Mm-hmm.
Everyday Matters Bible for Women. She starts reading, and one of the books was the Bible. And she reads the passage, and I don't remember the passage right now because that's not my gift and talent to memorize that. she reads a passage that God is for everyone. And it was such an aha moment for her, she said, where she was like, me too? Black me? Colored me? Mary? Me? She's a little girl at this time. Prior to that, she never saw herself as being connected to God and that God was here for her as well. And it was such a moving experience for me. It originally, that trip to Dayton, because it's in Daytona Beach, Florida, that trip originated from my girlfriend's mother passing away. So, like I said, everything is in contribution. My girlfriend won a trip to Daytona and says, Nads, let's go. And it was again three of us going, different three. And one of the things we decided to go on tours was Bethune Cookman College because my another friend who was on the trip too, her father had gone there. And so we went to her home and I just felt her history. I felt her energy. And just when I heard that, it spoke to our oneness. And again, community, because it took someone else to shine the light for her, to recognize that God was for her as well. Because before that, the thoughts in her head and what she had been experiencing and what she knew of, she was God was not for her. And it was just one of those stories that really, I'm going to say, stuck with me to shine the light on the oneness, to shine the light that when I bleed, you bleed. When somebody, some woman in India, in the UK, wherever, man, woman, child, it impacts me over here. Like the ripple of the ocean, it impacts me. And so I think about things of like global warming. I mean, there's all kinds of, I mean, I could go off into all kinds of stories, but it speaks to our oneness and how important it is for us to be our brother's keeper, to be our sister's keeper, to know that what I'm doing right here in my little circle here in Mandeville, Jamaica, in my office, my home office, can reach millions of people, can reach. And that to me, again, goes back to my story on COVID and the doors and the opportunities that opened up. Did I first go into panic? Absolutely. Oh, how are we going to survive this little island? And we got recognized by the World Health Organization because we had put things in place to ensure the safety of the people here. And the communities came together to do that as well. Again, looking out for one another and our oneness. When you hurt, I hurt. When I hurt, you hurt. And so it just brought me back to that story of Mary McLeod Bethune, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who has now passed on. And that even though her earthly body may not be here with us, spiritually, she's still here with us. She's still a part of our world, and the impact that she made ripples out throughout our world. And every life has the same impact. It may not look the same, it may not feel the same, but every life impacts our world. And all of the experiences that you have are impacting my life, impacting your life, all of our lives. And again, just coming back to that oneness and that one, I like to say the one love, Bob
Love. Yeah, of course. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, we won't get into Bob Marley. We're not gonna talk about. He's like incredible. Yeah, just amazing human being. Yeah. Okay. Well, real quick, one of the reasons why I really, I mean, his music obviously is like incredible. But just him as a human being. I remember one of my friends, they told me a story of how when he when he started to go on tour around the world, he would go back to Jamaica and people would line up around the block of his house and he would pass them thousands of dollars, just handing it out because he was like, I have enough. I don't need any more here. literally, he would just sit there all day passing the money. And I just think this is like the epitome of like living in service and really being in union with God, right? It's like this ability to just give endlessly, and I feel like we haven't really seen anybody. Well, maybe there are people like this, and I haven't met them yet. Maybe that's
And maybe we're not connected to them. Maybe we're not connected to them. But I do believe that there, and I think actually, LaJoie, I'm going to say it differently. There are people like them
Mhm.
because it's you, because you're giving service to others. It may not be giving physical dollars. You may be giving it in a different way because it's giving out your love.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Bob
Mm.
only lived for 36 years. I tell that story over and over and over again. He only lived for
Mhm.
36 years, and yet he is the most recognized name in the world. Or I should say
Yeah,
one of,
yeah, everywhere.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about mental slavery. I think he came at a time where there was so much of that needed, especially in relation to people of color. Now, in our
Mm-hmm.
island, like anywhere else in the world, there is racism, there is separation, there is,
Mm-hmm.
classism, as they would call it, upper class, middle class, you know what I'm talking about. So there's all of
Mm-hmm.
that and that
Mm-hmm.
separation. And one of the biggest things he did was this One Love concert that brought people together, recognizing that we're all one. We're all one. And he
Mm-hmm.
talked about this mental slavery. And I mentioned it this morning in my talk. It's what you got going on up here. If you see yourself small, if you see yourself as not good enough, if you see yourself any which way you see it, that's how you are. And so this is where this is where the slavery is. Think on back onto
Mm-hmm.
Nelson Mandela, who spent years in prison, years,
Mm-hmm.
but he still had hope, and then turns around, comes out, and ends up leading come on, what is
Right.
like
That
serious?
part.
There's so many people we can speak about. Coming back to our island, we have a track athlete, Shelly Ann Fraser Price, who
Mm-hmm.
this is her fifth Olympics, which means
Wow.
she has been running no less than no less than over 20 years, right? She's had a child, she's come back and won medals. I mean, just
Wow.
unbelievable. Most persons would have been
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, give up. That she keeps coming. She keeps, I mean, and her resilience is just one to be just, again, just to be recognized. And so she may not be coming back doling out dollars like that,
Mm-hmm.
because Bob spoke about it very regularly that money really didn't mean that much to him, because
Mm-hmm.
he knew that there was abundance, there was no lack. Just like sand, there's no lack. Like air, if you breathe right now and I breathe, we've got enough. There's no shortage.
Yeah.
There's enough for everyone. But if we tell ourselves that there's not enough money, there's not enough time, there's not enough
Mm-hmm.
whatever, then that's what we believe. But if we say there's an abundance of love, there's an abundance of money, that's what we're believing. And if we say it is or it isn't, we are correct, because it is what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want
Mm-hmm.
to remove the shackles, it's got to start from here, from our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to know mindfulness. So when, early on when you spoke about me being a mindfulness coach, transformational coach, when you think of mindfulness, it's, as I mentioned, the journey that I've been on. It is moving from literally the senses, the five senses that we have, down to our
Mm-hmm.
soul. But to get there, we have to pause. We have to use the process, the tool of just being still and pausing,
Mhm.
and to get to that place that says, hmm, what is my soul saying in this moment? Because the knee jerk responses and the quick can happen like that. But it's when we pause and we become mindful. So, coaching is a very broad topic now, a very broad title category.
Yes.
Mindfulness is kind of like a niche within it that integrates that, those, like I said, the tools of being mindful, pausing, becoming aware, who am I being, with the traditional coaching. Um, but
Mhm.
what just came up for me as I'm here talking, I'm remembering that when I started with my trainer a year and a little ago, the very first day I
Mhm.
went there. So this is my physical trainer now. So I went to a gym, physical training. I went there and we're talking. He goes through actually a process with you first to talk about what are some of your things that you do and what have you. So, two significant things happened that morning. Number one, he's asking me about, what my fitness level is, what my nutrition is, all of the different things. But once he got to nutrition, I went immediately into I know what it is. I love sweets.
Mhm.
I love sweets. He asked the
Mhm.
question, when did you start liking sweets? Again, my knee jerk response, always, always. And I dropped it, left it there. He starts talking to me about, how to consume food, the way in which to do it, the different things that are important. And we went through all of that.
Mhm.
So about 24 hours passed. And again, I got this aha moment. Wait a minute. As a child, I was sickly. People always brought me
Mhm.
sweet treats. So, unlike my siblings and friends, I was inside. They're outside having fun during the summer months, running up and down, having a great time. I'm inside, literally
Mhm.
looking through the window at everybody else, having fun. And probably to appease me, to make me feel comfortable, cookies, candy, cake, all of the thing named sweet. Anything named sweet came to me. So comfort food,
Mhm.
right? And it was that aha moment of connecting those dots that when something starts to go awry, going in a direction that I don't want, I run to the sweets. That gave me comfort and it connected
Mhm.
those dots for
Mhm.
me immediately that day. And I was like, OMG. It was not again what's wrong with me, but what happened to me. Asking a different question. And him asking the
Mhm.
question of when did you start liking sweets, I could have just dropped it at always and left it. But the question was still playing in my head. It didn't happen immediately. Like I said, it was at least 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours later that it hit me. And then I started to almost dissect it a little more, dig a little deeper as to the whys and the, all of this stuff. So what occurred for me then was then I could pull myself up from when I see myself going in that direction. When things aren't working for me, it's not going the way I
Mhm.
want it to go, da 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 da. And I find myself grabbing chocolate, candy, a cookie, I can literally stop myself because I realize I'm going in a direction that doesn't serve me. And then the second
Mhm.
big thing that happened that morning was at some point I noticed uh, a, um, a tattoo on his leg that said, "Trust no one." And I'm all about language. So part of mindfulness includes language, or I should say, I've included language in it. Let me put it that way, because I wouldn't say that's a general, but I believe it is a part of it too. His language.
Mhm.
And I said, that's interesting. I said, why did you put that on your leg? And he said, oh, he's been burned so many times. He can't trust people. people, da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da. And I said, I want you to think on those words that are on your leg. Trust no one. Who is included in the one? And he went, it took him a little while, and he went, oh, me. I'm in the one. Because again, remember now, human nature, we're looking outside. Oh, I can't trust LaJoy. I can't trust my husband. I can't trust Mary. I can't trust my mom. I can't trust my cousins. No one, including me. Well, I'm here to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
18 months later, he's still, like almost every time I see him, I can't forget that because it was such an eye opener for him to see what he had done, almost self sabotage to himself because he wasn't even trusting
Mm-hmm.
himself. He wasn't trusting himself. So those are two significant things that I had in relation to even coming back to that mindfulness, the oneness, and our programming. Putting a question out there and just allowing it to just literally drop in
Mm-hmm.
your lap. Don't fight it. Just allow it to come to you because it will. It will come.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just realized that we have been talking for an hour. I love this. This is great. This has been really great. I really love the conversation. It's been wonderful. But I didn't want to leave without saying, because I don't know how much more time we have. But
Mm-hmm.
but when I think about, you asked me about entrepreneurs, individuals, and things that I would leave them with. I think, oh my gosh, her name just jumped right out of my head. I spoke about Mary McLeod Bethune, but Maya Angelou, she and her quote, people will not always remember what you said or what you did, but they will know how they felt. I don't know, I'm not quoting it exactly, but they will know how they felt when you were in their presence or you have left them. And I believe whatever your wow factor is or your bold factor is, leave people wowed. And the wow can literally be as simple as a word of encouragement, a smile,
Mm-hmm.
a touch, a touch on a shoulder, a hug, including what you do to yourself. Because the very first relationship that you have is with self. The first conversation you have in the morning, before your eyes open, before you say your prayers, is a conversation you have with self. And what does that sound like? Not to beat
Mm-hmm.
up yourself, but just to become aware, have my conversations been lifting me up or tearing me down? Is that what I want? Do I need a shift? Do I need some support? Do I need a community to lift me? Do I need somebody
Mm-hmm.
to support me in the practice of lifting myself up? I knew, I needed support from a physical training standpoint. I've done it on my own many times, many Monday mornings. And by Wednesday, I'm like, where are the washboard abs? Come on, girl.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I needed that level of support. And I found my niche, my community for that. And so, for the different aspects of our life, I want to encourage each person who will listen. I like to call it like the four pillars, and I'm going like this because I do it like a chair. You can't see my lap.
Okay.
Do like a chair. The four pillars of your life, to look at them and how you would like them to look. Your health and wellness, your spirituality, your relationships, your financial wealth, wellness. Those four pillars of your life, to just take a look at them. And Are they looking like what you would like them to look like? Are you experiencing the love that you truly want in your life for that kind of relationship that you would like in your life, or relationships? When you look at your spiritual life, is it feeling like it's lifting you up? When you look at your health and wellness, when you look at your financial abundance or lack thereof.
Mhm.
So I don't typically focus on financial abundance. I'm going to say on the forefront, but we all need money to keep things
Mhm.
going. Money is energy and it's currency like anything else. And as much as Bob, we mentioned earlier, was give out money, money was needed to do things,
Mhm.
And so financial abundance is a part of um, the tools, the teachings that I share with others through a mindfulness type of journey, a mindfulness transformational journey, not a one and done. And so I really, I've enjoyed this conversation with you. It has been just beautiful, beautiful.
And I love how we resonate too, and we are very much in alignment with a lot of the ways that we've experienced life and that we continue to transform ourselves, right? I just love what you said earlier, not earlier, but at the beginning of this conversation, how, we're not going to stop transforming until, that one time when we close our eyes, we don't come back. And then, I mean, even for some people, they'll even say that that's the transformation within itself, right?
It's
So,
a transition,
right. It's a transition, exactly, exactly. So,
and
I
we
just
don't
love
know.
that, and that's
We don't know
hmm?
what happens after that transition.
Right.
I may be back as a butterfly.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but that's something I always say is that, we are made in the eyes of the creator. Creator is God, right? Creation. Keyword, create. Create is just constant change, right? So I feel like we're always living in alignment as long as we are constantly evolving, we're constantly changing. I think we start living out of alignment when we get rigid, right? And we're like, no, I don't want to change.
I gotta do
This is just
this.
how it is. Right. This is how it's always going to be. And it's like, well, I mean, if you want to be in that state, I know I'm seeing it's not a very good state for you to be in. I know you don't like it, but if you want to be in that state, go ahead. You can stay there, but it's going to get harder and harder, right? Because again, we're not meant to be in that state of just, being rigid. We're meant to constantly change. We're made in the eyes of the creator. Like we can't,
Mhm.
I feel like it's impossible really, but that's
Yes.
my humble opinion.
And to be in flow. When you think of a boat, a yacht, whatever, catamaran, all that, they're in flow. They're in flow. They're going
Hmm.
with the tide. They're going with the wind, in flow. And I believe that for us as well. When we're going with the tide, life is just smoother. Period. And full stop. Yeah.
Okay, so last question before you go. Where do you see yourself expanding from here?
So funny, because we were chatting about this a little earlier before we got on,
Mhm.
is that I really have been feeling to be in service to others through two specific channels or areas, let me call it. One still in the same coaching arena, but two areas have been like on my heart. One, navigating grief. Um,
Mm.
some of it, I think, is because it's been really part of my life and how I have navigated it. My mom transitioned about a year and a half ago, and my dear friend, like one of my best friends, did
Mhm.
March of this year. And I've
Mm.
found that the tools that I have been able to garner and to utilize, it has helped me to navigate this season in my life. So that's one
Mm.
area that I'm looking to possibly do some podcasting because we talked about this. Um, I
Mhm.
bought the equipment and just haven't hit go on it. I do go on social media and do my lives. I don't do it very often. So I've made a commitment that this month I would be doing it consistently. And then Hurricane
Mm.
Beryl came along and hit our island. And I had no light, and I had no running water, and I had no Wi Fi, no internet. And so I had to do a
Mhm.
little pause. We got back like 2 nights ago. And so, but in the day, I went somewhere and I was able to get Wi-Fi and internet and so forth. So I actually
Mhm.
did started doing the lives consistently now. But I really would like to get into podcasting. I love the idea of this kind of conversation, and to be able to share more with others. I see that as a vehicle to
Mhm.
share with others.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is using people's stories, having the conversation, giving people a platform, an area where they can come and share their story in a way that there's no judgment. It's a safe
Mhm.
space that they can feel heard, they can feel seen, they can feel supported. I believe that that's one of my gifts that I give to the world. That individuals that have spent time with me, that's typically the feedback that I have gotten from them, including a dear friend who's also my accountant, whose mother
Mhm.
transitioned just last month, and her service was last week Friday, and she said to me
Oh wow.
that, boy, Nads, I really have appreciated the comfort that you have given me. That when I reach out to you, somehow the words you use just supports me in moving forward. And I
Mhm.
have felt I felt you. I felt your energy. I felt your support, and um, and so I know that everyone has a story. Every person has their
Mhm.
story, and we can use our stories to kind of spiral in a direction, or we can use it to spiral in a different direction that serves us. And
Mhm.
it's all about how
Mhm.
we see things and how we choose to um, to use the tools, the languages that we use, the knowledge and experiences that we have. And in this past week, the day before we got back the power, the electricity, it was one of those evenings which was very warm, so I didn't have a fan. Actually, I had a little portable one, and battery operated kind of one. No, it was charged up. It used to be charged up. Anyway, it was really like warm that night. And I think the lovely thing called menopause was on me. So I was having the night
Mhm.
sweats and all this stuff. And the next day, I was sharing that it was one of the most challenging nights of the week period, almost 10 days of Hurricane Beryl's passing. However, one of some of the things that I did as a result of it was, instead of fighting, as you mentioned a little while ago, I
Mhm.
decided to go with the flow. I went to bed early. I got up early. I mean, went to bed much earlier than usual, like 7:30. Sundown, 8 o'clock. I'm in the bed. Went to bed much earlier. I spent more time reading than being online. I was not like calling the light company and saying, "Are you turning on the light?" That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Persons, even funny thing, my friends were doing it though. Like, Nadine, when's the light coming up? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. But when it
Mhm.
comes on, it'll be the right time. It'll be okay. And I'm just going with the flow. That night, though, the night, and it just so happened it was the night before the power came the following night. That night was the most challenging. I was like constantly,
Mhm.
and I found the more I did this, the more I got frustrated, it was the worse I felt. And
Mhm.
so I had to
Mhm.
literally pause and go back to my breath and just say, okay, be still, be still. This too shall pass. And it did.
Mhm.
And so I found myself going with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's one of the. Oh, go
those
ahead.
so those are some of the things that are next for me. Um, I will be doing a 90-day program. Um, I believe I haven't set the date as to when I will start, and it's all around inspired action. But as much as
Mm,
I'm aware I know who I'm being, I'm not always choosing to take action. And in order to move, to ascend, to level up, I have to take action. In taking action, it's not about the hustle and grind. Ultimately, is how I see
mhm.
it. I see it about taking inspired action, allowing it to be, allowing myself to be guided internally to
Mhm.
externally. And so those are some of the things that I have coming up.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. And they can, of course, follow me on Instagram or Facebook.
Mhm. And of course, as usual, guys, Nadine is offering, I think, 20-minute coaching sessions. The link will be in the show notes below. Definitely hit her up, especially for those of y'all listening in the future. Y'all already know the opportunity still stands with you. Obviously, there is a limit. There's going to be a limit at some point. So make sure to hop on it. Do not be afraid to reach out to Nadine about her freebie. And thank you so much, Nadine, for being here on the show. I loved all of the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that you shared with our audience today. And I know that they learned at least one thing, if not more, about how to live better in alignment to really go with the flow and live a life of ease and abundance. Do you have any last words you'd like to say to our guests before we head out?
So the last thing I will say is go with the flow, number one, and that life is not meant to be done alone. So join a community. You can join my community if you wish. But there's so many because you're going to be connected. Energy is so critical and important, and you're either aligned with somebody's energy or not. Don't force it; just allow it to happen. And the third thing and last, one love from my heart to yours.
Of course. It's one love. I love that. Yeah, one love always, y'all. Okay. As always, I love y'all so much, and I will see y'all next week. Peace.